In the last video, we spoke about how Hebrew is different from most of other languages. English, Russian, Chinese all started as spoken languages and were written later on. Hebrew, on the other hand, developed first as a written language. In Hebrew, the shapes of the letters may be even more important than their sounds. But Hebrew is not the only Jewish language. Over the course of our history, Jews spoke many different languages. Most of us know about Yiddish, the language of Ashkenazi Jews, which developed around the 9th century and is still spoken in many Chassidic communities today, and Chassidic classic texts are written in Yiddish. Another Jewish language is Aramaic. Jews began using it during the Babylonian exile in the 5th century before Common Era, and kept it throughout the Second Temple period and beyond. Today, Aramaic mostly no longer used in everyday conversation, but everyone who studies in yeshiva must learn it because Talmud is written in Aramaic. I heard that Kurdish Jews still speak Aramaic at home, though I personally have never met any Kurdish Jews, so I cannot verify it. And there are over a dozen more Jewish languages. Wherever Jews lived, they usually developed their own spoken language. It was different from the language of their non-Jewish neighbors, but it wasn't Hebrew either. These languages were a mix. Yiddish blended Hebrew and German. Aramaic blended Hebrew and Arabic, and so on. Here is an interesting part. Every one of these languages was written with Hebrew letters. Jews around the world spoke differently, but all wrote their words with the same alphabet. And this wasn't some organized international agreement. Don't start developing another Jewish global conspiracy theory. It happened naturally based on shared values. Hebrew was not used for daily conversation because any spoken language changes over time and gets contaminated. Try reading Shakespeare in its original. And Shakespeare lived only 400 years ago. Imagine what would happen with Hebrew over 2,000 years or 3,000 years. Jews felt that Hebrew should be protected from that kind of change and kept mainly for learning, for prayer, and formal use. The letters, however, don't change because they are being used. And on the other hand, the Kabbalah explains that the spiritual meaning of each letter is expressed in its shape, and Kabbalah tells us about its deep meaning. Letters are the building blocks of the words. The Torah explains that they are also literally the building blocks of the world around us. So Jews, with our history, painted a fascinating picture. To preserve Hebrew, we created other spoken languages for daily use. The Holy Tongue was known by everyone, but reserved for study and for prayer. The letters, however, traveled everywhere with the Jewish people. Whether someone was studying Talmud in Aramaic or writing a grocery list in Yiddish. The Kabbalah is telling us that it was possible because letters have the level of spirituality that cannot be contaminated. This is why throughout history we taught letters to every Jewish child. And even today, there are Jews who can't really converse in Hebrew, but they still want to be able to read. You'll ask, what's the point of reading if you don't understand the words? As we explained in our previous video, historically, our transcription of language was not only for the purposes of conveying the sounds. The letters themselves have great spiritual meaning. So let us make sure that every one of us knows Hebrew letters.